Lucian Freud's Standing by the Rags, a work he made in his late 60s in his West London studio. A room that he inhabited year after year, decade after decade. And he painted standing up. And this woman in this slightly crazy and awkward position, leaning back against a pile of rags, the ones he used to clean his brushes. And it's a very awkward position because she's not holding herself upright. She's leaning into this great mountain of cloth. And you realize that she's somehow on the verge of being engulfed, but at the same time, utterly relaxed. The more you look, the weirder it gets. And when you move up close, it gets stranger still. The real problem, if you like, is that when you stand close to this painting, what looks like a very objective kind of description of drapery and cloth and flesh somehow falls apart. You begin to wallow in the paint. There are little rhythms and flickers of brush strokes running across and underneath and over one another. The edge between the body and the fabric seems somehow always under dispute. And when you get up close to her breasts or her belly, there are these great crusty mounds of dried oil paint, of Krementz white oil paint that thickens and curdles and crusts up on the surface, showing just how often he'd worked and reworked the painting. It's a kind of a battlefield, really, but somehow he keeps everything in check and makes everything appear, when one steps back, somehow seamless. Freud said somewhere that everything he did was autobiographical. It's not just about his relationship to the model, the sitter, his friend, his lover, someone he encountered who he liked the look of. It's autobiographical in the sense that he's painting himself painting. I mean, it's a ridiculous thing to do, to paint, to spread this coloured mud and to make a kind of model or version of what you're looking at. And I don't think he's a realist. What he's doing really is painting the encounter, not just between himself and what he's seeing, but is the encounter between himself and the painting. He's painting himself painting. And that's one of the more mysterious and marvelous things about what he does. It's not just about who can do the most realistic apple or thigh or breast. You know, there's time in there as well. Everything hits you simultaneously when you look at a work, but it's the accretions of labour and time and the backtrackings and the changes of heart and the fight with the difficulty of actually making something that works and seems real. And the longer you look at those rags, the more the real seems to be evading you and slipping away, and the more uncomfortable and unfamiliar the world seems to become. If Freud isn't a realist, he's not an expressionist either. And every part of his paintings are given equal weight as any other part. It's as if he scrutinises a fold in the cloth as much as he does a part of the model's body. Questions of beauty and ugliness naturally arise. There's nothing idealised about anything that Freud does. Actually, the only time he gets maybe a bit sentimental is over dogs or the back end of a horse. But when he paints people, and that includes himself, you get, if not exactly warts and all, but the sallowness of flesh, how it looks under a bare light bulb, thin London light. You're just there with this other person, this other being, and the objects around them. And the world kind of writhes before you. Freud didn't really so much have a career as a life, and the way in which his painting developed and changed over the decades of this very long working life is itself a kind of story of a relationship he had to painting and to the world about him. Freud scrutinized the world and saw it all as unfamiliar and continued to see it as unfamiliar, though he painted in the same room and the same bits of furniture and often the same people year in, year out. Freud taught himself, or rather he taught himself through the model of painters he admired. There's no one right way to paint a shoulder, an armpit, or a face. And by kind of reinventing it every single time he made a painting, which was a very risky process, and he threw lots away and left lots of paintings abandoned and unfinished, there's a certain advantage in not having a method. Although there are many painters who would love to get that Krementz white and all that umber and all that Naples yellow and kind of do a kind of Freud. But you can't do it. He's inimitable. Anyone who's becoming a figurative painter now, I think, will have to go a million miles away from Freud in order to find themselves and a way of looking at the world.